Welcome. I'm Alice Alicia Jones, and this is another one of my Living Consciously videos. I welcome you. I appreciate hearing from you. I love the comments that you leave me in the chat on the side. And if there's a question that you have, I try to answer it the next week. Um, I know I was very late last week, but I'm trying very hard to get back into the groove of 1 o'clock on Fridays. I was gone for part of the time, sick for part of the time, had family visit part of the time. So as a result, my schedule became very erratic. Today's subject is the Devic Kingdom. Contrary to what some people call it, because it's spelled Devic, they say Devic. It's not Devic, Devic, just like day and night. Devic Kingdom. There is a deva attached to every single item that exists on this planet. The deva is known as the architect of form. She's the one, and I say she, is the one who builds that particular item. She is the caretaker of that particular item. And she also has an interest in keeping that particular item whole and happy. So you can imagine what this does to the nature spirits who are the attendees to every blade of grass. We fertilize our grass only to cut it down. And I know that one time I heard the statement that especially people in the United States are going to have to give up their love affair with grass. Because to fertilize something only to cut it down just doesn't make sense unless you're harvesting it for food. With grass, you just let it grow to cut it off. But interestingly enough, people are actually taking an effort to grow vegetables in even very small plots of ground that they have that are open to the sun. So let's start with the first. The king, this is what I'm talking about today, is everything to do with the nature spirits. The king of the nature spirits is Pan. Pan is typically known as a being with the goat of a head, obviously the two horns, a tail, but a physical body that doesn't, is partially maintained as a human body, but partially as an animal's body because the legs end up with hooves. And like I said, a tail. So you can imagine that the Catholic Church, when it came into existence, their biggest challenge was the nature religions. And so they used Pan to be the model for the devil, interestingly enough. So anyway, the appearance of Pan is such that he has been seen by certain people as being 25 feet tall. Michael Rhodes was an author from Australia who actually saw him as a 25-foot tall being. Michael Rhodes became very enamored and very close to the nature spirits. And there was one incident that he reported where he was where Pan literally walked through him energetically. And then Michael was able to see everything that Pan saw. So you and I look out and see grass, weeds, bushes, trees. Michael was able to see every single nature spirit that was attending to these. So it just, I mean, it was phenomenal to, he said within a very short little space, he saw thousands of beings, and from very, very teeny tiny ones to much bigger ones, the ones that were associated with that particular flower, with that particular branch, with that particular leaf. I know the first time I met Michael Rhodes, as I turned to be introduced to him, when the man I looked at had elfin ears. And a lot of times I see what is not there. And I knew before I was introduced to him that this was our author. I had come there for I think it was either a 4 or 5 day workshop. And it was absolutely delightful because that was the first time I also saw the auric field blaze up against, because he spoke against a white background, and I saw a blue auric field. Very, very exciting for me. In terms of the nature spirits, the best book that I have found out there is out of print, and it's an author who has since died. But if you can go to either Amazon or maybe used bookstores, it's called it's by Ted Andrews, and it's called Enchantment of the Fairy Realm: Communicate with Nature's Spirits and Elementals. Elementals are the caretakers of the earth. And these are the ones that I'm going to cover first. The caretakers of the earth collectively are called gnomes. And under gnomes, obviously, come the brownies, the elves, the fairies, the pixies, the trolls, the ogres, the green man, the mermaid, the everything to do with nature. Um, the second one is the elementals of the air, and they are called sylphs. And they are the ones that are probably the least paid attention to, because unless a wind is howling, you practically never notice that a wind is blowing. And sylphs, if they want to honor you, if they want to get your attention, as you walk through a wooded area, it might be very calm, but you're going to walk through, and 1 or 2 trees might have their leaves moving. And so you know that's the presence of the nature spirits called sylphs. The nature spirits of water are called undines. And my favorite place in the entire world is at the edge of Lake Idlewild, where my husband's grandfather bought a cottage in 1947. And we go there, we try to go there for about 2 weeks every year in August. And about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the sun comes, the sun is setting low enough in the sky. And so that 1,000 points of light come and show up on the water. And as it drifts to shore, I can sit for hours, and I'm not a person that sits. I'm not a person that can sit still for any reason, but yet I can sit for hours watching the undines. I also have been gifted with seeing the aura of the trees at this cottage. I've not seen the aura of the trees anywhere else, but at this cottage, I will actually see magenta, yellow, blue, green, red around different trees as I am watching the undines. So I just feel that that's a very special gift to me. And the last one is the elementals of fire, and they are called salamanders. And I do want to introduce you to the angel in the flame. This is a meditation that you can do when you take just light a candle and do it where you have a candlestick so you can actually see the flame. I mean, the taper, I should say, rather than the candlestick, the taper, and um, just stare at that lit candle until the image splits in two. And the one where the image is moving away from the stationary image, you will actually see a head of an angel, the wings, the gown. And most of the time, that flame will move even if there's no air moving in the room. That flame will flicker for you, just reacting to the attention that you give it. So it's really quite intriguing. It's quite interesting. Um, the thing that I want to share with you, and I hope I can convince you to do this. I've even convinced my husband, is that the because these are living beings, the angel in the flame, a, a flame does not like to be blown out. It likes to be snuffed out. So just have a snuffer in every room that you use candles. If you have just one close by, you'll use it. If you have to go searching for it in another room, you probably won't use it. So just have a candle sniffer uh, when you know where you use your candles. There are certain archangels that are associated with these. Um, Ariel is associated with the gnomes. The sylphs is Raphael. The undines is Gabriel, and the salamanders is Michael. So that I found that was quite interesting. My personal experience with the nature spirits, certainly the most dramatic, obviously, has been Lake Idlewild. I love sitting there and I imagine, because I don't see them, but I imagine as I sit and watch each point of light coming to the shore, that there's a little being attached to it, like a little merman, and attached to that point of light. And one of these days, I have a feeling I will actually get to see that because I've looked for it so often. But there, I can remember the very first time that I had uh, I was close to a stream in John Ball Park Zoo in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I probably was 10 years old, and we were just kind of wading in it. And I can remember how clear the water was, how absolutely pristine, and that when I put my feet into the stream, it was almost as if I had entered another type of energy. Bear in mind, at age 10, I knew nothing about energy. So, but when I recall it, and I can recall the sensation, um, and water, of course, is used in baptism. Water is also always significant of spirit. It's 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 the spirit's messenger. So um, I just feel that somehow I received a cleansing from that. Uh, and ironically, I know that I have always lived close to major bodies of water. Even though I was born in Poland, I was raised in Grand Rapids, Michigan, which was like 35 miles away from Lake Michigan. When we moved to Virginia, my our third home ends up being right next door, right below Burke Lake, which is a man-made body of water, and just fantastic bike trail. You can trail all the way around the lake, but our subdivision leads to the bike trails to the lake too. So very, very happy about that. Plus, of course, we have the Potomac River, we have the Chesapeake Bay, and then we have the Atlantic Ocean here that isn't that far away. All right, the sylphs. Uh, my favorite in story about the sylphs is when I was in Scotland. I was on the Isle of Iona, and I can remember standing at the north end of the isle where there was actually a sandy beach because most of Iona is nothing but rocks, but beautiful rocks. Rocks that have been deposited from as far away as the Gulf of Mexico that have come up with the Gulf Stream, all different colors, all different shapes, some like coral, some green, some blue, some white, some red, some like brain, just absolutely amazing. So the sorry, um, phenomenal place, phenomenal experiences there. And I know that when I stood there, it was the most interesting thing about Iona was that when I would look out into the water, you actually could see a crosshatch in the water. So because the wind looked like it was coming in from two directions. It looked like it was coming in this way, but it also looked like it was like like it was coming in this way, but it also looked like it was coming in this way. So everything when on the water you saw looked like a crosshatch. And it was just incredible. I can also remember with the air and water going to an outcropping of like a ledge, but it looked like a chair. It looked like an easy chair. And so I sat down in it, and where I had put my hands would be like where the easy chair had its, had its armrests. And I looked underneath as I moved my hands, and there was like a little tide pool that where water had accumulated, but the shape of the stones inside that tide pool were angels. So that was an incredible experience. Um, and there was a, a just an incredible awareness of nature spirits that surrounded you. I would, you've seen mushroom rings where the little fairies gather and accumulate. Well, I called them fairy condos because instead of a mushroom ring of 12 mushrooms, I would see 50 mushrooms. And it just seemed like, oh my gosh, this is a huge complex of an area where fairies gathered. So uh, that was very special. The salamanders, the fire, the I've covered that with the angel in the flame. So remember, you do not blow them out, you snuff them. But our greatest source of fire is the sun. And right now we have the coronal ejections leaving the sun, coming towards the earth. And it's very disruptive with the electronic in the electronic industry because every single time there is a coronal ejection, it does something, it botches up our electricity. But anyway, let's see what else I want to cover. Uh, if you see twinkling lights, if you put out your hands and just to the point where you are at the periphery of your vision and you see twinkling lights in that place, that's an example of fairies. They will usually show up as twinkling lights first. So just know that you've been gifted. It's a very charming story about, and this is the Luther Burbank, and how he's the one that has, he's now deceased, obviously, but he had developed the Burbank Seed Company, and he could look across a field of 1,000 flowers, but go and pinpoint 4 places where he would want those seeds saved. And those flowers developed from those seeds to be the ones that were cloned and harvested to be sold on the open market. How did he see that? Through light, through the light that emanated from that from the plants. And obviously, that was the salamanders that were helping him do that. The gnomes that were are really quite the thing that I want to stress about gnomes. Very mischievous. Once you start getting into understanding how to work with the nature spirits, or even wanting to work with them, just know things will disappear in your home. If you're lucky, they'll reappear. If you're not, they might be gone permanently. I had a piece of labradorite disappear for 10 years and come back after 10 years. I also had clothes disappear for part of a week, and then I would just be infuriated. And especially if they were brand new clothes that might have been hung up in my closet. And then when they reappeared, they would be crumbled up on my floor. And usually, when that happened, it'd be about 4 to 6 days later, 4 to 7 days later. So, but those were the effects of the fairies. Um, let's see what else I can tell you. Oh, obviously, gnomes, pixies, brownies, elves, all of these beings exist, but they exist in the fifth dimension. So you have to look for them through fifth dimensional eyes in order to see them. This is why most of the time children can see them, because children don't have this preconceived notion that, oh, you can't see into the fifth dimension. So we even had an experience with an infant who was diagnosed, I think, at the age of 9 months with Tay Sachs disease. And a child that's been diagnosed with that can live anywhere from 2 years to 12 years, but it's terminal. It's and it's usually transmitted to little boys in the Jewish religion. They do test for it, but there's something like 150 different tests. This young couple had about 50 of them, so never had the full range of tests. So their son was born with Tay Sachs. And one of his very, very common occurrences in his life, his very short life, because he only lived to about 3 years of age, was that he would look up in the corner and just stare intently for hours. And so we felt that he was looking into the fifth dimensional world, into the angelic realm, into the fairy realm, because he he never really did showed response to anything else, but the light in the corner of the room was always fascinating to him. I'm going to continue this because there's a lot more to say next week, but I think it's almost 27 minutes, so that's long enough for this one. I thank you for watching. I will read your comments, and like I said, if there's anything that I can answer next week, I certainly will. And I really appreciate you being here. I don't have my book as an example right now, but if you need a book on meditations, Own Your Power is the best on the market. It's on my website, Alicia, ALICJA, Jones.com. My classes are listed there, and any readings and healings that I give. So you can contact me through my website. I thank you. I bless you. I love you. Goodbye.